having an ambition is that it can be explained to others. The very disease of ambition is that it can be so easily explained to others. What is worthy of a life's dedication does not want to be known by us in ways that diminish its actual sense of presence. Everything true to itself has its own secret language and an internal intentionality with a secret, surprising flow, even to the person who supposedly puts it all in motion. Ambition ultimately withers all secrets in its glare before those secrets have had time to come to life from within, and then thwarts the generosity and maturity that ripens the discourse of a lifetime's dedication to a work. We may direct the beam of ambition to illuminate a certain corner of the future world, but ultimately it can reveal to us only those dreams with which we have already become familiar. Ambition, left to itself, like a Rupert Murdoch, always becomes tedious. Its only object, the creation of larger and larger empires of control. But a true vocation calls us out beyond ourselves, breaks our heart in the process, and then humbles, simplifies, and enlightens us about the hidden core nature of the work that enticed us in the first place. We find that all along we had what we needed from the beginning, and that in the end we have returned to its essence, an essence we could not understand until we had undertaken the journey. No matter the self-conceited importance of our labors, we are all compost for worlds we cannot yet imagine. No matter the self-conceited importance of our labors, we are all compost for worlds we cannot yet imagine. Ambition takes us toward that horizon, but not over it. That line will always recede before our controlling hands. But a calling is a conversation between our physical bodies, our work, our intellects and imaginations, and a new world that is itself the territory we seek. A vocation always includes the specific, heart-rending way we will fail at our attempt to live our lives fully. A vocation always includes the specific, heart-rending way we will fail at our attempt to live our lives fully. A true vocation always metamorphoses both ambition and failure into compassion and understanding for others.
All right, thank you everybody for just listening to that. Yeah, I think so. Bhoomi has always, in our taglines, put up saying, "Have you, do you want to listen to your inner calling?" And I think that's the difference between sometimes having ambitions and goals, and sometimes taking the time out to listen to this calling or find this calling and be on a journey of finding this purpose. So I think all the speakers today and in the past that we have featured, in some ways are unambitious in the mainstream sense of the word, and but have found a calling and are on that journey. So I think very happy to have all of them and all of you who have joined us. what I'll do is I'll let Ishita then introduce our first speaker, Babitha.
Thank you. Namaskara, everybody. I think thank you for joining us on a Sunday morning and going with us along with our alumni on this journey that they have taken. And as Adil was talking about ambition, I think these people are ambitious in a different way. So if you talk about perspectives, I think there is one way that the world sees ambition, and the people who we have with us today, they are people who look at ambition a little differently. So let's listen to their journey. So our first speaker today is Babitha. Welcome, Babitha. Thank you for joining us today. So for me, Babitha is a person who is soft, gentle, passionate. So these are the words actually which come to my mind when I think of Babitha. And her smile just lights up her face. And she's a person who always greets everyone, anyone with a smile. And I think the warmth just comes through. And she's another person who can quickly make you feel at home, put you at ease, and then be there for you. So that's Babitha for us. She's also a person who's taken this path which is less trodden. And she's not afraid to follow her heart. Currently, she's engaged in building and creating awareness about sustainability, sustainable menstrual health, and waste management. She is also an influencer, and she works towards co-creating eco-wise communities, and she also works with various youth groups. And I think that's just the tiny bit about Babitha. And now I'll hand over to her and we'll listen to her journey and what she has been doing. Yes, Babitha, all yours.
Thank you so much, Ishita. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
And yeah, it's always good to be a part of Bhoomi family, especially during the pandemic. It's really heartwarming to come back to your place and feel held. I'm so thankful for this opportunity. And hello, everyone. I have a very small presentation that'll help us to navigate through, because I'm basically a very talkative person. Yeah. Can you see that? Okay. So why did I join Bhoomi? I'll start from there. So the thing is that when I joined Bhoomi, I was thinking of a program where I can take a break from what I was doing. Basically, I was working with waste management then. I was actually following what I really liked doing. But then somewhere I felt it was really overwhelming, and I felt stuck at one point of time. So I just went to my friend Shraddha, and I asked her, where can I take a break for some time? I can't take a long break also. So what do you suggest? So then she told me that, there is this one program called Sankalan, which happens in Bangalore. So Bangalore, taking a break. So everything sounded perfect. And I tried to apply for Sankalan program. But then by that time, the program was over. And there was this one year long fellowship course. So there was this one thought, should I take a break for a year as in 10 months or so? So will that be a gap, a long gap or anything like that? I'm kind of want a short break. But then IOE was something which was integrated. Inner and outer ecology was something integrated along with the course, and I thought of taking the course. So why I joined Bhoomi? I just wanted to take a break. That was the primary reason. But then once I joined, the thing was very different for me. So I was really overwhelmed when I reached the place. So I was in a very different phase of my life altogether. But I think that was the best decision I took, because it gave me it my life changed after that. So I'll have to go to the next slide. Okay. Just a second. Did it stop sharing?
Yeah, it stopped sharing, Babitha.
Okay,
You
just
wanted to move to the next slide?
yes, just a second.
Okay. Or if you want, you can just mail it to me and I can. Okay.
I'll oh, can you see that now?
Yeah.
Okay, that comes. So this is something which has stayed with me for a long time, ever since I joined Bhoomi. That's the path isn't a straight line, it's spiral. You continually come back to things that you thought you understood and see deeper truth. So for me, uh, ever since I reached Bhoomi, I started unlearning is what I felt. Because there was this one notion that you have been doing a lot many things that you really know and like, but there was this a lot of outward, I wanted to change things. I wanted to make people understand, but there was a little effort to look inside of me and understand myself in a very different manner. That happened actually. I joined the course. We went to different schools. We were introduced to concepts, and we were actually looking into. We were actually having experiential learning, which was very new to me. So for me, I basically don't read a lot and all. But then me talking with people, interacting with people made a lot of difference. And uh, and seeing the work that has been done in a very different way was actually an eye opener. So there was a lot of things to unlearn and see through different lenses. So so that basically made me question what I was doing. And I tried to uh, you know, focus a lot more on myself. That happened through IOE, uh, which I'm really thankful for participating. Uh, Basically, seeing the work in a very different way and seeing the other people, especially who has conflict of interest. So when we work with, as Ishita told, I work in menstruation, where we have to actually question the norms that has been set, and people will have very strong opinions and ideas about certain things. And it was for me to anchor on myself also, to accept them for what they believe in, see their beliefs as their beliefs, and see the person different. So that was a very new thing for me, because until then I used to see a person with a conflict of interest as a person that I have to correct. So so this was a very new thing to me, that the work that you do is for yourself also, rather than it is for outside, so there was a lot of reflection which happened. And one thing that which stays with me when I talk about Bhoomi is the word community and emergence. So community, because I felt that the power of community is a lot more stronger, the way we hold each other up. And it is important that community, the feel of community is ingrained to take the work forward. So yeah, and emergence, because a lot of things will have a very different impact, uh, and at times when you work a lot with waste and menstruation, it happens to have that we'll hit somewhere and get stuck. It happens at times, but it was for me to understand that it is okay to have that phase, and it will have a very different outcome altogether if we have the patience to wait it out and see that in a very different way. So, and how did it happen? How did the so-called perception change happen? IOE was one thing that I told. Another thing was the people that I interacted with, especially my batch. I think they still hold me in all my difficult times. That is the place I can fall back to when I see that there is if I'm confused. I do have people to look back to or fall upon to. That's something which is really important, because for the work that we do, we'll face n number of questions, n number of you know uh, what to say, uh, at one point I feel that you question yourself, am I doing the right thing? So it's always good to have a set of people who reassure you that you are holding on, you are doing your part. So for me, uh, it happened very organically through Bhoomi. It wasn't that you get structured thing and you have to go back and you have to ask questions, and no, nothing like that. It came very organically, and there are people who actually we look up to also, like many people in our from alumni network and Madhavi and all. So we see that work is possible when we look at them. So it's kind of very mutual, inspirational space, and also an, a group of people who really believes in you more than you. So that's what what happened after Bhoomi. And yes, what the one thing I like about this thing is that it is not that you get all the answers, you go there. It is not that you get the resolve every questions that you have. Maybe probably you come out with a lot many other questions and even commit mistakes, but I think now I make the mistakes mindfully, uh, and um, and that's something I really liked about being in Bhoomi, that it is not always about finding answers or solving things. It is always about believing in yourself and moving forward no matter what. And it is always about the love and warmth that we always have for each other, and support that we give to each other. So that's the why and how about Bhoomi. And I'll tell a very short thing about what I do right now. Uh, One is I'm a part of, we have a collective called Sustainable Menstruation Care Collective, where we create platforms to talk about the practices, the hygiene part, the intersections of menstruation, where we have whole conversations, basically share experiences, and also discuss about mm, the health aspects, the emotional aspect, the environment aspect, the gender aspect, especially about menstruation. So this has been happening uh, for some time, and I think we have traveled across Kerala, holding spaces, and the spaces that we create actually has changed these days. We are more into seeing deeper connections, that's what I feel about the work right now, because it is more of understanding. Earlier it was more of, sharing. Now this is more of understanding, learning also from them. So basically we can say that's a very small groups of co-learning spaces, which I really enjoy, because it's basically working with children, and I love to work with children and young adults also. So that's the work that I do in that aspect. Another thing is Green Army. Green Army is a space similar to um, SNKC, but still in a different way. This is more basically focused on climate action, waste management, and now we have started organic farming also getting attached to this. So this is also basically a youth-driven program where we reach out to children, and I basically learn a lot from children, especially being, being brutally honest and about having, faith. Faith is concrete faith in what they do. So that inspires me a lot. So that's it. And also right now I'm working with an organization called Gender CC, which is basically focused on documenting the gender related work. So they believe that the gender justice and climate justice go hand in hand. And I try to document the efforts that is made at a local level, especially by women and women groups. So that's a work that I do right now. So that's it. I think we will talk. I'm very bad at having a single and conversation. So I just want to say this. For me, this course was not exactly a course. I think I'll say that was a phase in my life where I started questioning certain basic things I had in my life, and also see the world in a very different perspective. Uh, Also to see that this is a never-ending journey, just like the spiral that we saw in the beginning. It is a never-ending journey, and I'm glad that I'm a part of this, a part of a group where you are constantly nourished, and you know, yeah, I'm just happy to be a part of this. So for those, if at all you are a person who try to be in the who look forward doing a course, please do. It is not that you will get all the answers, but definitely that I really think that will change your life for good. Yeah, thank you. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Babitha, for sharing with us your journey through the years now.
Yeah.
I think we will, Adil will move to the next person.
Yeah. I mean, if Babitha would like to talk about her experience of working with young um, youth and young children in school, if you would like to do that now or maybe later. Babitha, can you do
Yeah,
that? Yeah, great.
sure.
Great.
Yeah. So one thing was that especially when it comes to menstruation, where the topic was very difficult to start a conversation with. So we had to basically go to places and literally in public spaces and residents association, and randomly pick people and talk. That how it started even. So when you think about it, it's really crazy. And working with youth and children, especially, I think the work that we do is gaining momentum, because with the pandemic also hit, and also the reality striking in with the climate change, and it is visible over in many areas. uh, People have actually changed. It is there in their mind that it has to be changed, but it's the youth that has the courage to act upon it. and also the children who has faith in the work that we do. So the thing is that they are kind of welcoming about the work that we do, and also there are more people who are interested in the work. So especially when we mentor groups, so there are a lot many youth groups coming. Earlier it wasn't like individuals coming forwards, but it is quite heartening to see that there are youth groups, especially focused. My work is basically focused in Trivandrum, Kerala, where we can see a lot of small collectives were coming together, even if it's for a short time or also. Right after the flood, it happened that a lot many people were interested in doing ground level work. And it is and very recently there is this one youth group who started selling organic started sourcing organically produced fruits, and they started a shop. So it's for them to take up the risk of, especially when in Kerala's perspective, where we see this, we are actually educated, the most educated state, but when it comes to taking an alternate path, it's a very difficult path actually. The one thing that you're trained to do is get a government job right after your uh, degree or whatever it is. It's more like, people asking, if you are of a marriageable age, are you getting married, are you getting married? It's a similar question that a person faced right after the passing: when are you getting a government job? So people to take it's really nice to see people taking up different paths. Even if it's very less, it is really nice. So working with youth energizes me, one thing. And as a group who is working in the field of waste management, we can see that there are a bit more entrepreneurship side of things also happening up. Let it be setting up waste management systems or companies related to that. Even for sanitary pad management, they have started actually working with started companies, small companies, and started working with that. And also in the work that we do, we have to work with the government agencies also as such. So that's a very, very different ball of game, in which you have to be very patient, because it will go in a very snail pace. So there is this one cloth pad unit that we started, gave the proposal like 3 years back, and it got approved like last month or so, that it is you can start. So so that, I think, that balances off. When it comes to youth group, the actions are done in a bit more they're very spontaneous in that manner. They believe in this and they just start doing about it. On the other hand, it's like, they believe in you somehow, but they'll act very slowly. So this balances up things for me a bit. So yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Babitha. I think maybe once all the speakers have spoken, we can come back to how has this maybe in a little more detail as to how you work with the government and other stakeholders. What does it require to be able to work with different groups and communities? Thank you, Babitha, for sharing. Yeah, I think next I would like to invite Chandan. Chandan did the false version of Bhoomi Fellowship in 2014, because that was the only version that we offered, which was a 1.5 month program on food and farming. But I think he's experienced everything. So he lived here in the hostel, went out on field trips. There was a very, very vibrant group that he was part of. A lot of them who are doing amazing entrepreneurial work now, including, I think, Shobita, who's part of Proto Village, Sandeep, who has started his own IKEM, Deepanjali, who's been working with local groups in Sarjapur. So I think he's had the entire Bhoomi Fellowship experience like compressed in a month and a half. I think Chandan, I've known him to be a very deep thinker in the sense that he's not really looking at what are the easy solutions to sustainability. Sometimes we might get carried away by, let's say, some of the personal choices that we make in regards to sustainability or being sustainable, while important from an ethical point of view, while important also from a smaller sustainability point of view. I think Chandan is somebody who's also looking at, while working on the ground, he also has an eye on the larger systems that are making us unsustainable right now, and making sure that we voice that out as well. So sometimes we have this tendency to say, be the change implies that we just need to make some individual changes in our life, and that will mean that we'll be sustainable. But I think Chandan is really looking at, the deeper issues that the civilization is facing, we are facing in a hyper capitalistic world. So he has strong views on that as well. But there is the other side of him who has been an environmental educator, a sustainability educator. He's worked for, I think, very interesting places that I did not even know existed. Let's say Academy for Earth Sustainability, Center for Environmental Research and Education, more well known, but still worked in these very interesting places as in program and curriculum development, worked with children, worked with corporates also. So you're looking at a rich experience that Chandan brings with him. So I think I would love to hear about his journey and some of his learnings from working for these organizations, and now he works independently. So yeah, Chandan, over to you.
Thank you, Adil. I don't know how you come up with such amazing introductions every time. Very, very generous of you. Thank you. So, hi guys. I'll just start off this presentation. Uh, if you can't see the screen, let me know. I will change something, or just let 5 seconds go as we do on Zoom, and then everything happens. Okay. So I hope everyone can see the screen. Great. So since the theme of this talk is basically the journey, and everyone's sharing that, I'll take you through that for for maybe half the time, and then we get to something I hope you can take away yourself. So for me, it begins during my engineering days. So I graduated in 2011. It's 10 years back, as a mechanical engineer, and then I did a couple of jobs in the industry and in teaching and all that. And then in 2014, I took a break, saved up some money, and I wanted to find what else is there, because when you train as an engineer, you know how we are screwing up the world, like you literally know. Uh, so then you want to know how to not do that. So that was one of the small motivators. Uh, the words on this slide are the main areas of focus for me that have been there since whenever I have discovered them. And they form part of the foundation of my thinking and approach to all of these subjects, which I discovered in 2014 in a bigger way. So I took the time out. I went to this really nice place in Himachal Pradesh called Dharmalaya Institute. We did a course called Deep Ecology, and from then I got to know few people who connected me to other places. Such one of which was Bhoomi. So we learned that, and I just spent that 1 year learning everything I could about sustainable living. I don't really like that word, but for lack of a better term. and how to live closer to nature. What is it that we're missing? So I went to Bhoomi, learned organic farming, natural farming, permaculture, all of those things. Then I learned how to build using natural materials. Then how to use solar panels and stuff, and all of those things really. And then after 1 year of that, uh, I basically ran out of money because these were all courses, and I was living in different places. So then I started working with this really interesting organization with my friend Sukriti, who you see smiling in this picture. So we were working with kids on education, experiential education, uh, on permaculture, growing food. Uh, in the picture, you can see they're making solar cookers, and on the top right, there's a solar dehydrator. The banana chips tasted really amazing. I still remember that. So a lot of experiments really that I've done throughout these years. AES was 2.5 years of experimentation on all of these topics in rural areas, in urban areas, with um, different groups. These are girls at an orphanage and a girls' shelter. And we work with some international schools, some state schools, all of those. And we always try to experiment with different programs. We also did some growing experiments. So this is the left and top pictures are the same school with those girls. So we learned some techniques from them, and we tried to experiment with some techniques we had learned from Nasser, who's my teacher in permaculture. And the bottom right is an urban farm that we set up, urban food garden, you can say, in Kurla, Mumbai. So, and we also hosted Narsanna sir for doing 2 PDCs. The left one is in 2015, and then this one is 2016. Both times I met some amazing people. So I'm just going a little fast. If you guys have any questions or are curious about something, we can maybe take that later. Uh, then I was kind of not being able to work with children. I found that pretty challenging. I have always have before that. So I changed course again to work at this place called CEI. It was a more conventional type of environmental organization, although it has a very good reputation and it's done a lot of good work and continues to. So I was running this program called the Green Champions program here. So all of these guys are IndusInd Bank employees. We did trainings with them 2 times, 4 times a year, and then we would go throughout the year. We would be planting trees, cleaning up beaches, and doing health campaigns and food collection drives, and all of those things that are popular now and have their own place in the environmental movement, uh, as much as we could do using a corporate group. What I try to do within that is to get a deeper perspective in. So when we did sessions, I tried to get simpler concepts like the story of stuff or the idea of water footprints and ecological footprints into what these guys are learning. Uh, then I try to get them to actually plant some things using some concepts of permaculture. So I tried to add some quality there, add some value, which was different. So 2.5, 3 years of that. I also was developing a curriculum for the eco park that Toyota has made in Bangalore. So that was a fun thing as well. All experiential education, 4 books of that. Then after that, I left that as well because it got it kind of became a same 9 to 5 job that I did not want in the first place, and so I had to leave. Unfortunately, I could. COVID took care of that. So just before the COVID wave came, I had like waltzed into the office and given my resignation. So that was March 2019, no, 2020. Right? And since then, I've been doing a lot of fun stuff. Uh, Fortunately, have been able to uh, do it on my own now. This is a really nice program that we offer, a small 2-day introduction to permaculture, and with two other amazing facilitators, Anshri and Astrid. Uh, so a lot of this is where I actually can get my deeper ideas out, and within the framework and the syllabus that is already existing. Uh, with that, I've been doing a lot of online sessions, again for a lot of corporates, because that's where people are most disconnected, according to my observations. Where once we get into those jobs, it's a different bubble that we start living in, and to introduce them to deeper ideas is a huge niche that needs to be filled. So we need more people in this space who are willing to do the deep work themselves, do the research, get down, spend time, and then very skillfully convey those ideas to people. And I've struggled a lot to do that. Continue to. So these are the topics that I've taken these workshops on, and try to offer more. So, and I've been consulting as well now for the last year on different permaculture design projects on the land. These are in near Mumbai. One is in Hyderabad. One is near Pune. Food forests, mostly food forests, water harvesting work, and different types of growing and conservation projects. So yeah, that's the journey in short. A lot of it I have not been able to uh, just fill into the presentation here, but the main takeaway or the main learning is that it's looking back. I'm happy that I took it as an experiment, as a curiosity, and I'm grateful that I could, because there were points when I could not, when I had to take up a job because of family constraints and because of financial constraints. So this is something that gets missed out. I think Madhu also mentioned yesterday that how she had to struggle, at certain points, because uh, uh, many people in in their 20s, when they're like, oh my god, I'm going to be this environmentalist or whatever, I'm going to do something else. They don't take that into account. I did not. And I just jumped. Then I had to come back. And then when you have to come back, then your ego comes in. Oh, I'm not living according to my ideals. But then being able to be okay with that in that moment lets you go further. If you just blame yourself, then you'll. I mean, I know a lot of people who've just gone rebound, tried to leave the corporate job and settle down in a forest and just rebounded like crazy. And then their ideas become even more stronger. Their convictions just uh, get into everything they do, and then they hate, and then they ridicule everything else, because it's natural. Right? But so that's where you have to be careful not to judge yourself too much, and go forth, come back, take a pause, forgive yourself, and keep trying. So that happened a bunch of times with me, but overall it's been great. Um, if you guys have any questions on this, Adil, are we taking questions now or later?
We're taking questions at the end of all the presentations. So we have like half an hour.
Okay.
But if you want to go a little more detail into any of those things, you can, because there's time. Take it.
Okay, great. I mean, I have the other part of my presentation left, but you let me know. Then I'll just talk about a few learnings then before going ahead. The main learning is that, like I said, it's good to keep it as an experiment, so that uh, uh, you have the freedom of knowing at the end that I did what I wanted to do, what I could do. The only problem that I have seen, as we spoke about ambition at the beginning today, is that you can start with ambitions, you can start with anything, but then at the end of 3 years or 5 years or whatever, you look back, a lot of the times you tend to feel that, oh, I could have done that and I did not. So try to do that. That was my lesson to myself. Uh, Try and take the risk, speak the words, uh, go somewhere. All of those things. So experimentation, curiosity drives everything. Without that, nothing is possible. The other thing that I've done throughout this journey of those whatever 7 8 years is to develop a personal philosophy of the environmental movement. What is my place in it, and how everything, all of my experiences connect to create that. Because life is not an accident, is what I believe. Everything that happens kind of connects if you spend time connecting it. And so if you see all of these words, they all have parallels, they all have connections. And once you sit with it and you start seeing it, then it doesn't stop. Um, and um, and the underlying theme of all of that, what really connects, is that last word, the smallest one over there, because that is a thread that goes through all of these other things and so many others. That is the one thing that stays, and everything else goes away. Uh, we'll come to that again. So with that, I think I will. Can you see this? Yes. Okay, so let's get real. My first question is that whatever happened to the actual environmental movement, protecting nature and all of those things, because once you see where we are right now, once you work in this space, you get to see at least two very different levels of approaches. One is what is called shallow sustainability or shallow environmentalism, and the other is then you can get uh, one layer of depth you can go to. So what I have seen is that most of the discourse is overtaken by corporate pleasing, people pleasing, and system pleasing kind of behavior, and somehow uh, everything we put into it, everything we offer, gets converted into a product that is then sold. If you see, there's a lot of people doing tree plantation drives. It's a business now. There are NGOs popping up just to do tree plantation for corporates, and then they charge their own rates, and they're just making money. And there is, more importantly, there is absolutely no sense in the way they are planting trees. Uh, so a lot of that is happening. Then there is this whole um, uh, approach to individual environmentalism, that I'm not going to use a plastic bag, that makes me better than you, or I'm a vegan, that makes me better than you. And it's it, if you stack those impacts, there's actually no impact happening at scale. That is one thing. And it is it keeps us busy squabbling amongst ourselves, and within that time, hundreds of acres or more of forests are being destroyed, and there is this whole confusion. Environmental movement is today like a bunch of headless chickens running around, no direction, no accountability. And I'm not saying that the efforts are useless. I mean, there are people doing amazing work. The people who are actually dedicated their lives to doing it. We've heard some of them. Uh, Yesterday we had Madhuri. We just heard Babitha. We had Madhu. Uh, these people are in a different space, but what I'm talking about is the perception that is spread among the masses that to be an environmentalist or to be someone who is fighting for the earth means to be someone who is using shikakai to wash their hair or using a cloth bag. Please use a cloth bag. Please use shikakai. But I'm saying, please do not confuse that with saving the earth. It doesn't work like that. This is we've modeled change, the process of change, very differently. We've oversimplified it as a simple addition of individual efforts, which is not true at any scale. The systems and the structures are not built as additions of individual outcomes. There are thresholds, there are non-linear ways in which your contribution is connected to the final impact, which requires us to go deep into it and really find out. And we don't go deep because the whole thing runs on distraction. Um, so the first and most important thing, I think Derek Jensen also speaks on this, is that first decolonize yourself. Find out who you are. That whole spiritual dimension that is spoken of. It fits very aptly in the environmental space because it lets you find a foundation for thought. It lets you find a foundation for feeling. It lets you find who you are. And when you know who you are, or you at least try to know who you are, then you can know what to fight for and how. So these are some of the graphics that I keep sharing on this Instagram page of mine that you can check out later. A lot of these rather unconventional and often said to be hardcore views. And one thing that brings me back is this line. Um, any Sanskrit person here who can tell me what this means? Madhavi, you want to try?
What is the line? I can't see any.
Achha, you can't see the screen.
No,
So,
I can't.
so there is a line I don't know where it comes from, but it talks about the soul and it talks about that which cannot be destroyed. Okay? Not with weapons, not with fire, not with air or wind or whatever. And I come back to this line. I've used it several times in my writing as well, because this is what keeps us struggling, or rather not knowing this. I have so many friends in the movements, like the RA movement and all that, who do that for a couple of years, and then they're just so emotionally exhausted because our foundations have not been made, not personally, not through our families, not through our schools for sure. And then we come into this field and we try to give everything. We try to pour from a cup which we don't know how to fill, right? So that's what matters to me, to first have that, and at least try to have that which means when everything else goes away. And if you see, there is one word that I spoke of earlier, which everything then comes down to. The background of this picture is a starry sky, and there's two things there. there are the stars themselves, and then there is the darkness. Both of them are important, and this is what we are missing. One of the things is the non-acknowledgement of one side, one pole side. I see a complete non-acknowledgement of certain parts of the environmental movement, such as the difference between what I can do and what actually needs to be done. There is a difference between conservation and protection. You can only conserve what you can protect, and the protection element has been missing since we have been taken over by this kind of corporate individualized culture that I'll just sit down in my flat and use a herbal shampoo and do some part-time environmentalism, and it's done. This is an idea that is sold to us, but you don't work part-time for someone who you love. You go out there and you do what needs to be done. You fight, and that is what the earth needs, not half-hearted people with posters. And I don't mean to insult anyone. I've been one of those people. I still am, because we have to do what we can. But if we do want to make a change at the systemic level, then it takes nothing more than giving our whole life, everything, like people are doing. So, and that is only possible when you see, when you're willing to find out, when you're willing to strip down to that which remains after you lose all those identities of, I'm a sustainable person, I'm an eco-friendly person, I'm a corporate person, I'm an engineer or a teacher, whatever else you have. Because then you're free to fight. Then you don't mind taking the risks, because what are you going to lose, right? What did you have in the first place to lose? So that is where I wish to leave you guys. If I've made you a little uncomfortable in this presentation, that has always been my dream. So I will be happy to put that thought in your head and leave you with that. These two big questions. If you have any more questions or want to reach out, you can reach me at these accounts on Instagram or email me, and we talk. For now, I'm done. Adil, I hope I have not exceeded the time.
No, I wasn't even checking the time, so I have no clue.
I know you weren't. You were happy.
Yeah, I was happy to speak to you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think when we have the interaction part of the thing coming up, maybe we'll have some questions, maybe a couple from me as well. So
please, yeah.
Yeah. Ishita, next.
Yes. So I think, thank you, Chandan. That was interesting listening to your perspectives about what you do and how you want us to think about things to take forward. So I'm sure, as Adil said, we'll have questions for you at the end of the talks. So now I would like to welcome Puja. So thank you, Puja, for joining us today. And I think a brief introduction about her, then we'll listen to her journey. Puja was with us in the 1920, right? So you're part of our last batch, because last year we did not have a fellowship program because of the pandemic. So 1920, so she's part of one of our most recent batches. Puja, again, is a person who studied to be an engineer, right, Puja? You did. And then she started working in the field. And I think somewhere along the line, she decided that that was not for her. And she too wanted to follow her passion, which happens to be education and working in the field of education. So currently she works in the field of education. But before that, I mean, even before joining Bhoomi, in 1920. I believe, Puja, you were in Sikkim, right?
Yes, I was.
Yes, and you were working there with a school.
Yes.
Only after that you came and decided to do the Bhoomi Fellowship. So that has been her journey, getting into the field of education. A little more about Puja. She is again a deep thinker. She likes to follow her passion. That is Puja for us. She's currently engaged with her brainchild, which is called Holistic Edu. I'm sure she'll talk about that. So Holistic Edu brings conversations around holistic education with educators, practitioners in the field, change makers, those who have maybe questioned and redefined the meaning of education. And they also host workshops for parents, again, educators, to make education more meaningful for educators, facilitators, and for the learners. So I hand over to Puja, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about Holistic Edu and about your journey. Over to you, Puja.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ishita, for that. I think you've done quite a really lovely introduction. You more or less captured a lot of what I was going to say. But however, everyone, good morning, and I'm so happy to, well, not see you, but I'm so happy you're all here to listen to me. Hi, Chandan. Yes. Yeah, so I will start. I have a putty presentation, so let me get on with that as well. Yep. So this is me. I'm Puja Uchil, and the picture that you see here is one of my most favorite images. I use it, I think, in everyone who asks me, send me a picture to show what the work you're doing, and I use this picture. I will get into it of when we took it and what it was all about. But like Ishita was saying, I started off as a chemical engineer. Like those were my qualifications. And a lot of what I did was what our education system asks us to do, which is complete your schooling, do your college, get a job. And if you're good at science, or rather if you get good marks, get into science. And if you're good at science, get into engineering. And so the ball rolls. And I was that ball that rolled along and did quite well, till a point when I realized that this wasn't giving me any pleasure. It wasn't giving me the gratification of doing something. You know, you come back when a project gets over and you're like, yes, now my reactor is standing there and it's going to produce ethyl chloride from tomorrow. There was no happiness out there. And I'm like, what can I change about it? And very frankly, at that point, I did not say I will quit this job and start educating children. No, very frankly, at that point, I had simply no idea, because I hadn't explored enough, right? I just went from school to college to engineering and a job, a good package, and you know how that goes. And that's when I said that let's stop that. And something that I really, really love to do is travel. And a place I really, really like to travel is the Himalayas. I've been trekking even before this break. So I said, okay, let me do that. So I packed my bags and I did my basic mountaineering course, and I realized I love the mountains. And somehow one thing led to the other, and I decided to volunteer for a school in Sikkim. I'd never been to Sikkim before, but like I said, I love the Himalayas. So I said, okay, why not? It's just a volunteering stint. I'll just go there for 1 month and play with the children and see how it happens. But I just fell in love with the place. I fell in love with teaching children, and not even teaching children, with being with children, with learning from children. I fell in love with those moments. The fact that you could enter a classroom and share a little bit of what you know with children and see their eyes light up. The fact that you could make the child feel that, I want to learn more about Kashmir, I want to know more about fractions, and that you could be the catalyst for that feeling. It was a feeling like none other. And somehow one thing led to the other, and I joined SHA. Before which, of course, I did my whole stint of volunteering. I did my basic mountaineering course. I did a little bit of stuff. And a lot of this made me raised the question, why hadn't I done this before? Like, why I hadn't done this maybe just after college, or figured out what I wanted to do before getting into engineering. But that said, somehow things fell into place when I joined SHA. Now, SHA was a non-profit school. SHA is a non-profit school which has been running for many years. So the way it runs is it would choose children who were from really low economic status, who couldn't afford to go to any school at all. We would pick and choose only such children, take only one child from each family so that we could reach out to the most families possible. And I came in with all my high ideas with the city, saying that we'll do this and we'll do that. But what I had was my concept of a classroom, which was the one I had experienced as a child. That was my only understanding of what a classroom should look like, or what an education should look like. So with that limited knowledge, yes, we did a lot of wonderful things. We did fundraising drives, we brought in amenities, which is what we always think as city folks, that that's what we need to do, right? Bring in amenities. So we brought in books, we brought new uniforms for the kids, we brought in new clothes. I learned a lot of good things. I learned to make momos. I picked up a little bit of Nepali. We brought in a lot of books, stationery, and I found a lot of joy in that. I found a lot of joy in giving the children those moments. What I also realized was that children are the same everywhere, right? Whether it's Mumbai or Sikkim, all of them wanted to learn. All of them wanted to know something more. They wanted to know about the city I came from. They wanted to know about the different cuisines that are available in Mumbai. They were very curious and wanted to learn. So that was me learning from SHA. What it also made me realize is, this is me, a city girl who has been getting a defined amount of money in her engineering job, and felt that that is the amount I need to survive. That's the amount that I need to live. I have to have this high paying job. Otherwise, how do I live? But staying in the small little village, it's a beautiful village called Buryakop. I mean, you guys should visit it sometime once this whole lockdown situation gets done. It made me realize that I don't need that much amount of money, right? This amount that we define changes dramatically when you reduce the kind of expenses you're used to. The weekend binging out and the mindless movies, a lot of things. Once it went out, I realized that the amount I really needed to live was much lesser. I also found the joys and the challenges of living in a remote village. Electricity would go off for days on end. We would not have electricity. Internet was good till the electricity went off, and then there was no internet. There was community. There was so much of joy in community. One of the children, if their parents had a very good crop that day, we would have like a feast in the school. Or we wanted to build something and carpenters from the village came and joined us. So the sense of community. And while there was all that, there was also this thing that came into my head, that these are the children who need access to holistic education. These kids from lower economic status, these kids in rural villages, remote villages, not just the fact that they're living in so much of beauty, the amount of resources, the abundance of resources that are available to these children, and the fact that it's not being utilized in the way it could. That made me think. It got me a lot of questions. And some of the things that I got to thinking was about how do we create an environment that helps nurture the learning in a child. When we built this library, the picture that you see here is something that we built in 2017. After I went there, I realized that the kids wanted to read, but they had nothing more than the textbooks. So we did some fundraising and created a library. And these are, this is class 1. Yeah, this is grade 1 kids sitting with the books and reading. So all of them, once you got them books, or once you got them a few methods saying that let's learn by this, let's learn by that. All of them wanted to learn. But I was like, okay, what can I do different? How can I create that environment? And at that point, I still didn't have the tools at my disposal. Some other questions that came to my mind was this. These tiny classrooms that we build for them, right? Sikkim is beautiful. It's green. There are mountains all around. You get up in the morning and you open the balcony and there's mist coming into your balconies. It's heavenly. But then the school bell rings and all these tiny tots who are playing around form a single line and enter the classrooms. And we close the doors. And then when you look at the classroom, you could just pick it up and transport it to Mumbai or Bangalore and you couldn't tell the difference because the child is back into those cages. And I wasn't sure what I could do different. I wanted to get them out of the classrooms, but I didn't know how learning could happen outside the classrooms. That was again a question that really annoyed me. You know, we would play, school would start at around 7:38, and till then we are running around, jumping up and down, playing on the seesaw, and having a lot of fun and learning, very frankly, because we would play hopscotch and different games like that. We didn't realize we were learning, but we were learning. But then the bell would ring, and then I would become a teacher, and then you would enter the classroom, and the same thing that happened so many years ago in my classroom when I was studying would happen again. Good morning, teacher. Good afternoon, teacher. Take your books out. Take out your paper. It just went on into this loop. So that again made me think, what can I do different? The Sikkimese have a beautiful culture. They have so many tribes. They have the Lepchas, Gurungs, Sherpas, so many tribes. Each tribe has a different dress, a different accessories. This girl that you see here, Nimchiki, she's a Gurung. Nimchiki, she's a Sherpa. So the dress that you see her wearing is a Sherpa dress. You would have a different one for Gurung. You'd have a different one for Lepcha. But they weren't learning about it, right? They weren't learning about any of this. The songs that they sing, the cuisine, the culture that they have, it wasn't there in the studies. The minute they entered those classrooms, they kept all that aside. And they started studying about something that happens in cities. This is an example I use very often. We were teaching ABCD to the kids, and we were talking about F for fan, and everyone said F for fan. Till one of the kids said, Miss, what is a fan? And I'm like, what is a fan? And then I realized, oh, in Sikkim, you don't have fans. It's cold. You don't need a fan. And that's when I also started thinking about the contextuality of it. Are the lessons that they are learning have any relevance to their culture? All of them felt that Mumbai was this glamorous city and all that they need to do was, you know, the minute they get a good education, quit the mountains and come to Mumbai and life will be beautiful. There was also this disconnect with the culture, a disconnect with their own sense of living, the farming that they do. They were all farmers' children. Some of them were carpenters' children, but none of them wanted to do that. Because the whole point of entering the schooling system was to get a job in Mumbai or Bangalore or other places. That made me a bit sad. It also made me think about these smiles, these beautiful smiles that I saw every day, and how I could bring them into classrooms. We tried a few things out. We did lesson plannings to make it a little more experiential. But I felt that there were a lot of these questions and very little answers that I held with me. And I think it was these questions. It was these questions that led me to Bhoomi. So I joined Bhoomi with the idea that I know what is wrong with the system. I know what I don't like about the system. But I don't have answers of how to make it right. I don't have answers of how can I bring joy into learning? How can I make children enjoy what they are learning? And learning is a joyful process, isn't it? So it wasn't really me instilling joy into it. the joy was already there. It was only how to get the fear out, how to remove those barriers that make learning seem like such a chore, like such a thing that you have to do to get marks, to get a job. So that got me to Bhoomi. And I cannot tell you how Bhoomi has been words are too less. I learned here that learning is joyful. I came here thinking that I'll pick up tools, and after this 1 year, I'll have, like when you do a B.Ed degree, you get all the tools and techniques, you learn the theories, you learn the all the masala that's needed. But I realized that Bhoomi is a bit different, and there was first unlearning that happened. Unlearning of my concept of what a classroom is, unlearning of my understanding of what education is. There was so much breaking down of what I believed a child should know and what I believe that I should teach a child. So a lot of that got broken down. I learned so much more about myself. A lot of the speakers before me also have spoken about the ecology, deep ecology, inner and outer ecology. And these were programs within Bhoomi that really made me think hard about myself, about the concepts that I hold to be true, my beliefs that I held to be true. What was it that made me think about that? What makes me think that me as an adult should teach or should transfer my knowledge to children, or that I am superior to a child and will transfer knowledge from that higher seat of learning. It broke down those concepts. So there was a lot of unlearning that happened. Then there was also this finding my tribe. Like a lot of, I think Chandan was talking about it, that when we get on this road less taken, it's a bit of a lonely path, It's a bit of holding your silences because sometimes you don't feel that the people around you understand you. It's a bit about wanting to say something but not being sure if the others will understand you. So deeply seeking co-travelers, deeply seeking fellows who will understand you. And I think Bhoomi was that for me. It's amazing if you think if you're a square in a world of circles, and then suddenly you enter this tiny room where there are so many circles, and you're like, oh my god, did this really happen? And I found my tribe. I found people who would echo what I was thinking, and I stopped feeling like I was the weird one. And yeah, so I think Bhoomi was that, finding a tribe. And even now, like the way others were saying, when we have those doubts, and we will have those doubts several times in our journey, there are ups and downs, and a lot of times you feel that what I'm doing, whether it's right or not. At that times the tribes kick in. There's people who support you and say that it is right, the journey makes sense, go forward, continue doing it. So Bhoomi was that. These people you see in this picture here were my tribe from holistic education, and this was a storytelling workshop. We had a beautiful storyteller who taught us how to use stories in teaching. And I hadn't ever considered that, right? That the stories which you always think is something that you do at bedtime, it's something that gets over when the child is 10 years old, could be taken into classrooms, can be used 9th, 10th, college. Stories are now even used in corporates. And I was blown away with the idea of using these sort of things in classrooms. So I think finding my tribe was probably the most important thing I learned from Bhoomi. Something else was being inspired by people, and so many people, right? Bhoomi, almost every day you meet someone new. There's a new faculty member who comes, someone who brings in a perspective that is fresh and new and you've never heard of before. And you're left with this idea of, why didn't you think of this before? So someone like when I met, I think Sudha from Prakriya, and she started speaking, or Indra from Purna, so many people who just changed my ideas of education, of myself, of learning. Every day I would be inspired and I'd rush home and I would want to write it down. I would start Googling them and trying to find out more about their work, more about their ideas. And it would be a never ending spiral of finding more ideas, connecting those ideas, seeing the associations in them. So a lot of my time in Bhoomi was doing that. I filled books and books. So my fellow travelers, my co-members in Bhoomi would always tease me for that. Because I think I had like 3 or 4 notebooks full of notes that I had taken. And even the way of my taking notes changed with Bhoomi. We used to always start with lined books, and then with some of the classes that happened in Bhoomi, all of us switched to unlined blank pages. It was sort of a very, setting your mind free, and we started taking more unique personalized notes filled with doodles. I love drawing doodles. As a child, I would put it on every textbook, but I would always hide it because it wasn't right. You would be yelled at by the teacher. But now I could flaunt my doodles. I could be creative with my note making. So that also made me feel liberated, made me feel that the ideas I had so far had some merit. It built in so many new perspectives, the way I looked at things. And I think this particular one was led by Ishita, where we were talking about the journey of an object and how an object is not just an object but has a journey from the time it is created to the time it goes back to, say, compost, to landfills. And it's changed the way that I look at things now. I cannot look at a bottle and only look at it as a bottle. It now is everything from the carbon that it was created to the carbon it goes back to. And all these perspectives, I realized, need to be a part of the education system. All these ideas that we were getting it now after we've finished our education, finished working for so many years. When you've already created your biases, prejudices, everything, you've already sort of been formed. Whereas these ideas, if it's created when you're a child, when you're still forming your concepts of your world, your schemas, it would be so different, the way you look at the world, right? So I had that, and it kept tingling in my mind that it needs to come into the mainstream education system. I know that it's there. It's there in all the wonderful schools like Prakriya, Povidam, the Krishnamurti schools. There are so many amazing alternative schools. But I'm still thinking about a tiny school in a remote village in Sikkim and wondering how can these ideas be taken to these classrooms, to these children. So that's an idea that's still with me. It was with me during Bhoomi, and it is still with me. How do we get parents, how do we get educators, how do we get children to look at learning in new ways? So that's been a lot of what Bhoomi was about. Like I said, I love traveling. And we had an internship period in Bhoomi where you could pick up a project of your choice and present it at the end of the internship. I chose travel. I chose to travel to different schools around India, basically South India here. And I again was blown away by the fact that my concept of what is a classroom changed. I went to Sholai, which is like over so many acres. I think it's 100 acres of land. And they didn't have a classroom per se. Classes would happen with teachers sitting on a water tank with the children. They would happen in the kitchen lab. They would happen in the corridors. They would happen under a tree. What you're seeing here is the dining room of Sholai School. Then here in Puvidam, you can see the boys' hostel, and here too they would have learning. Cuckoo Forest School. A lot of the word school was used in a very different context of what I had. Like when you look at schools in Bombay, there's a different image that comes in your head. And when if someone asks you to draw a school, that's what we generally draw. If someone asks us to draw a classroom, that's what I would have drawn initially, right? I would have drawn these rows and rows of benches and the children and a teacher in front of them with a blackboard and chalk, because that was my schema of a classroom that's been built with what I have seen and what I had experienced. That completely got shattered when I traveled and visited these places. These schemas got broken down and new schemas were formed. So this was something else that really built new perspectives for me. Visiting these places, traveling, talking to the founders of these schools, talking to the children. And in all these places, what I found was a horizontal hierarchy versus schools, which always have the structure of vertical, the headmistress saying what she needs to the educator then putting it down the child's throat. That changed when I came to these places, and I realized that the circle was just a part of all the learning. They were always sitting in circles, talking together, discussing, learning from each other. That again redefined what I thought a classroom should look like. So I passed out in 2020 from Bhoomi right amidst the pandemic. We had an online graduation. So it wasn't maybe, what we had in mind. And I wanted to start this initiative. One of the things maybe why I joined Bhoomi also was to bring these ideas to mainstream schools, to the masses, to make it more accessible to children who can't afford to go to alternative schools. How do I get the knowledge from that into their classrooms? That was one of the ideas that I had. And I said, okay, let's start it. So with one of my friends from Bhoomi, Tejashwani, we started Holistic Edu. And since it was right in the middle of the pandemic, there wasn't any option of going to the classrooms. So we said, okay, let's bring it here. And it had to be online. We did it through Zoom. And we did it for a school in Kerala. That's where it began. And this was a school I had interned with. During my Bhoomi internship, I had interned with it, and the management was interested in bringing holistic practices. So I said, okay, why not? We'll do that. This was a lovely journey. This was the first time I realized that it's a small spark, but once the teachers get introduced to the idea in the way that they realize that it makes their learning easier. It actually made it easier because we had someone who was beautiful at singing, and she was teaching maths. So all her lesson plans initially were just numbers. And okay, this is the new concept. Now go back home and do exercise 1, exercise 2, exercise 3. And then we were talking about integrating arts into education. And she wrote poems. She sang songs about maths and beautiful Malayalam songs. So that also gave me a little bit more of reinforcement in my idea that yes, it can be taken to mainstream schools. But also, and this is where reality hits, that in the pandemic, the schools were kind of starved for cash, starved for funds, did not have the money to pay teachers' salaries itself. So we again got into a bit of brainstorming, and that's when I realized that the other stakeholder we talk about, or rather the one we don't talk about so much, is parents. Parents, especially now with the online classes, are spending so much more time with their children. And even when I talk to, say, relatives and close friends, the online classrooms for children is usually dragging the child and keeping him in front of the laptop, the child crying because he doesn't want to sit in front of the laptop for 3 hours, and then a screaming match with mother, father, and the child. So I said, okay, that's now time. Let's talk to the parents. And so we started doing that. We started conducting workshops for parents as well. So one of the things we started doing was holding conversations. So what I do is I host something called Wholesome Conversations every Saturday. At least I try to do it every Saturday. We reach out to people who are doing really good work in education and try to bring it to the forefront. try to make more people aware of things that storytelling can be used in your classrooms, that there is a concept called theater of education. Um, there is dance that can be used as a medium. We had someone who uses dance to tell stories on education. So the conversations that we hold are to do that, to make alternative education, holistic education, not something that's just a buzzword or something that's only available to the elite, but bring it to the masses, make it something that everyone is talking about. And then seeking, okay, now that we know this exists, how can I bring it into my homes? How can I bring it into my classrooms? And also maybe trying to create an umbrella so that uh, a lot of artists, like we did one workshop called Creating Safe Spaces for Expression, and we got a hospital clown. And very frankly, till I met her, I didn't know there was a concept of a hospital clown. But once we did that, I realized there is so much of scope for that in education, for the techniques that a clowning workshop gives you to make learning more joyful. That was a revelation to me. So we do that, we conduct those workshops. And each time I do that, each time I have these conversations with parents, I get this feeling that, it's not that they don't want to, but they don't know how. So it's also what Holistic Edu wants to do is bridge that gap, sort of bring the how to them. Start with the why and then bring the how to them. And I guess a lot of that came to me from Bhoomi, from the whys, because we spent such a lot of time in Bhoomi exploring the whys, why the current education system is not really working, why we need to make certain changes. So I'm trying to bring those whys out in our conversations, webinars that we conduct. So that's what we do. That's what Holistic Edu does. Basically, we try and bring a shift in perspectives. I don't think I would say that what we do is only just providing them with tools, but what we try and do is get them to think a bit differently. That is corporal punishment the only way you can see in classrooms? Can we look at it a little differently? Does education have to happen only inside the classrooms? Can you take it outside? So we're trying to have those conversations with parents and educators. And I try to do this. I try to collaborate with a few artists, like you see, there's Monica here, there's Priya Muthukumar, there's Lakshmi Priya. Improv, I feel, has tremendous scope. I'm sure it is included in so many parts of education and alternative schools, but it's not a well-known thing in mainstream schools. It's not even a well-known thing in mainstream life. Like, I did not know about improv beyond the show called Whose Line Is It Anyway? I did not realize it was being practiced anywhere. But the scope that it had to create safe spaces to allow a person to express their thoughts, their ideas. And I realized that is what education is for me, giving the child the tools to express themselves more freely, giving them the courage to do so. So that's also what I've been trying to do, trying to get these wonderful artists together and using their tools to bring it into education for children. So yeah, that's also what Holistic Edu does. And yeah, I think that's more or less the end of my PPT. This is what we do. Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, so on and so forth. Yeah, I think I'm there. Adil, am I within my...
Yeah, I think that was good.
Okay,
Thank you, Puja. All right, so what we had thought was we'll keep about, looks like 15-20 minutes for questions or any perspectives or anything that you would like to ask or share with the speakers. So yeah, the floor is open now. Babitha, if you, yeah, sorry. Please go ahead, Bhoomi.
Thanks. Thanks, Puja, Babitha, and Chandan for sharing your journey. One question I have is, when you spend time with such spaces like Bhoomi College or, for example, Shantar, Swaraj University, you kind of live in a community. Like Puja shared, it's your own tribe, where people don't judge you, they accept your ideas, they motivate you to follow your inner calling. But then when you come to a real world, that's a different ecosystem, right? Because people will judge you, they will demotivate you, they will call you crazy. So when you come to a real world after spending so much time to these spaces, how does it feel? Does it depress you, or how do you deal with this shift suddenly from Bhoomi to a real world? I mean, would love to hear your thoughts. Anyone can go ahead.
Okay, maybe I'll give my experience of it. So with Bhoomi, you're like in this nice, happy bubble, right? Surrounded by people who understand you, who resonate your ideas. And then you step out of the bubble and come into the real world. Yes, it is a jolt, and you get those. Now the conversations change, because now the conversations aren't people echoing your thoughts, but you're having a bit of friction, you're trying to, but then I also find that you find these tiny pockets of people who do resonate with your thoughts and do come to your workshops, and you that sort of the fact that you really believe in what you do, it keeps you going. It starts off with each time you have a bit of friction, but then I have this little bit of love from people who have attended, say, the workshop, or my tribe that still continues to hold me. So it is a bit difficult. I'm not saying it's easy, but yeah, I think both your passion and your belief in what you're doing keeps you going, and the tribe that you've found also continues to hold you. So that's been my personal experience.
So, shall I share then? So that's a very good question, Bhaumik, because when we talk about, especially when I talk about Bhoomi to other people, it's like it's more like an utopian space, you know. Does it sound so utopian? But then it's really for us, you know. So for me, I carry a part of Bhoomi in wherever I go, and I feel that it is for us to not to get caught in the labels that we carry. That's something that which I really learned from Bhoomi, that as Chandan said, I am this, I'm an environmentalist, so I'm supposed to be do like this. So we are a part of a system, and we can't call ourselves saints, you know. So it is for us to anchor in our intent, you know, and have the faith, at times blind faith, that what we do is actually making a difference, and accommodate the diversity is what I learned from Bhoomi, and embrace the chaos as such, you know. It at times difficult, but as this ray of hope is what something which keeps me going. I really do have a check with my batchmates. That's something that I really do. And yes, it is difficult, but it's not impossible, is what I feel. So Bhoomi is more like a feeling and a thought that we can always carry along with us. So yeah, that's it.
I mean, I have the second one as well, but if anyone wants to pitch in, please feel free.
No, you can go ahead, Bhoomi. The floor is open. So if people want to ask, they'll ask.
So this question is mainly for Puja, I guess. You work in a school where the students are from low-income communities. And for them, probably they haven't heard of holistic education, alternatives, learning spaces, etc., etc. Because probably for them, what's important is to get educated, get a degree, get a job. and be financially sustainable. Do you think there's a mismatch between privileged kids and underprivileged kids? Because when we talk about unlearning, unschooling, or alternative spaces, it's more easy for a privileged kid to be in that space because they have a ecosystem to support. But someone who is coming from a slum background or a very remote village, they don't have an ecosystem to support the alternative spaces or alternative education. For them, it's important to get a degree and get a job. Is there a disconnect between privileged versus unprivileged kids in terms of learning? Or do you think that it's just in our mindset, and if a privileged kid and unprivileged kid can also learn?
Yeah, okay. Thanks for the question. And I think this is something that I get a lot whenever I bring up this concept of holistic education in talks with anyone. They're like, "Haan, ye sab to theek hai, but how will you get a job and earn money and stuff like that?" So I think it's also us questioning what holistic education is. Like if I just talk about it, saying that I want the learning to be more contextual to their reality, or I want the learning to be joyful. If I just bring it to that small thing of that, the learning should bring joy to the child. I can teach fractions to a child in a way that brings them joy. So alternative education or holistic education, does not mean that you will not get a job. It does not mean that you will not be able to earn, right? That's something that parents always feel, that alternative education mein sab sirf artist banenge ya aisa kuch banenge. It's a concept that's there with the parents. So that's the conversation that we have with the parents, that it's not that. It's that the child finds what drives him, that motivates him, that gives him joy, and then becomes exceedingly good at doing that. Because he's finding joy in it, he becomes exceedingly good at doing that, and then takes it forward to, like, a child from the slum can become an engineer after using or studying in a school which offers holistic educational practices. He doesn't necessarily is not restricted to just becoming a painter or an artist or something, that most parents feel. And this has been a struggle. So I've been talking to a lot of educational spaces which were trying to be holistic in the hills. And it is a lot of a struggle. A lot of them shut down because the farmers or the people nearby felt that ye sab, अमीर लोगों के लिए ठीक है because they have the money, but our children need to get a job and earn money. But there are places which have been able to, successfully do that. Do it with, like Povidam for that matter, is like a beautiful example of using holistic practices for low-income children. So I think those conversations, the more and more you have it with parents, will get them out of this concept that they feel that's only limited to to rich people. It isn't. That's my brief 2 cents on it.
Can I say something, please? So I would like to share a success story of a friend of mine from Nasik who educated her daughter at homeschooling. And she is today got a full scholarship at Oxford University in the UK and is doing phenomenally well and is close to graduation, also doing very well at Oxford. And some of the things that the university found very enchanting about her CV was that she started organic diyas during Diwali, the entire society. She said not to buy diyas, let us make them. Then during Ganesh Chaturthi, she got clay and people just rallied around her. So she used to do even things like that. And I think that ultimately was a plus point rather than a minus. So I'd just like to share that.
So I would like to respond to Bhumik. Thanks for that question, because I really understand where it is coming from, not only for holistic education, but also it is applicable to everything when we talk about sustainability or alternate options as such, because there comes the, question of having a livelihood based on that, or how do you meet the expenses and the whole thing based on the economy part of it, affordability part of it, and there comes the question of privilege also. But what you asked is very relevant, because it do have an impact. So from what we understood, when we check about the disparity that we have based on money, the question is very relevant, and that's something that we try to overcome also. So it's not that we go and make this as a mass thing or something like that. The opposite current is very strong. So the effort is to maximize the number of small initiatives and pockets, and make a small network which is strong enough, so that we can withstand that current rather than it drains us away. So that's the effort that we do, is what I feel. But yes, the privileges that we have, even this talk that we are having right now, shows it comes from the privilege that we have. So it do play an important part, but I think that won't be the defining part of what exactly, that's one factor, then one face of it, but that's not the defining thing when it comes to sustainability or education. Efforts has to be made, and it's a very slow effort. We are more like earthworms, right? We till the soil very slowly, and we let the air pass through the soil, and we let the trees uh, have their roots go through, penetrate through the tree flourishes. So we are more like earthworms, is what I feel, and we do a bit. Yeah.
I have a question. This is Vadiraj from Bangalore. Um, so I hear Puja and Chandan, they've actually quit their high paid corporate world, and they've chosen. So this is something most of us go through on and on. So what I'm unable to make my mind is how to balance the economic income or the source that we have, and do you think that it is possible to do, or is it full time that you decided that it requires a full time involvement in whatever you're doing, or is it something, have you come across people who actually can manage both as a volunteer or a weekend or some kind of off hours from their career, or but I see you people have taken it as a full time and exploring those stuff. So what we do is, whenever we have time or weekends, is what I get involved. But I understand it is not enough. But do you think that everyone should get into this kind of a thing, or how do we balance? Is there some experience that you can share, any of you?
Yeah, I'll take that. Puja, then you can add. Sorry, Babitha. Hi, Vadiraj. Very often I get this question, and for me the transition took like 6 years. I tried once in 2015 to completely switch, and then I failed because I couldn't keep it up, so I had to come back, like I mentioned before. So if you're okay with that, you can take take a calculated risk. Know what you're okay not having in life. Once you know that, you can actually take the calculated risk. So if I have to go for a movie every weekend or go eat out in a restaurant every weekend, I know how much money I'm going to make, and then you can um, just write it down and check based on other people who are doing that work, if I can make that much money. And then you can have a transition period set for yourself. So I did that in 2014-15. It didn't work out. So this time it did work out for me because I had more experience. I knew what I was doing better. So that you can do. But there is a more fundamental question here that needs to be the first thing. That how much do you want to go into this? And there is a sort of pressure almost that you have to be an environmentalist. Let me tell you, no, you don't have to be an environmentalist. The environment is within you. So I often say that if you want to eat organic food, don't do it for the soil. You do it for your body first, because the body will directly give you feedback. Then if you feel like extending that, when your cup is full, so to speak, then it can spill over to nature. So you take a call. If you're doing work on the weekends, you're planting some trees, you're going about it um, in a educated kind of manner, then please go ahead, do what you can. But at no point should you feel a pressure to live a life that you're not feeling aligned to. If you want to do a transition, then give yourself a planning phase and do a transition. But don't feel a pressure, is what I would say.
So that's a good one. Thank you, Chandan.
So I think I missed out my career professional thing when I presented. I'm also basically an engineer. I'm not so proud to say that though, but yeah, I worked in lighting design for some time, and then unlike any other Keralite who's an engineer found a different path. So so it was for me. I was working as a lighting design and administrator when I was I before started my shift in my journey, and I was well paid for that matter. Then I moved to an autistic rehabilitation center, where I had a very fond memory of myself having a connection with an autistic child. So the transition was very abrupt in terms of money, actually. But I think it is for us to understand what we really need. So if you are in that bridge, whether I want this or I want, you have to actually have that in your mind. What do I actually want? Do I want this or do I want that? At times you can't have both. So as a person who has always taken crazy decisions as per normal standard, I think that it is for survival, yes. And it's high time that we redefine the term success. And there is a constant comparison that we have with we so-called normal people and the people who have chosen a different path. So at times we are very hard on us also. So it is for us to understand what we really need, and to balance it accordingly. And if you want, as Chandan said, if you want to start off very low as like volunteering, low as in the time of engagement, time engagement. I started as a volunteer first, volunteering for different organizations, and becoming, when I was slowly extending my time, finding the right balance. Where do you want to stand? What do you want to do? Do I want to pitch in a bit more? Do I want to have a lot more of this or that? So that's a question, and that's an never-ending question, is what I feel. Thank you for that question, Vadraj.
Thank you, Babitha.
Yeah, I think Vadiraj, we can connect you to many other Bhoomi alumni across like past 8-9 batches who have taken different journeys as well. So some people have quit in just a second. Some people have made sure that they have all the financials sorted out and they know that they can survive. So there are different models. People have just dropped out of college and joined. So if you're looking for maybe different sort of models, we could connect you with some Bhoomi alumni who have done different things in terms of making sure the transition um, is something that they are comfortable with.
That'll help a lot.
I think
Great.
yeah, I think we do have somebody who is trying to ride both horses. There is someone we know who has a part-time job and she works on her farm. So I think we can, as Adil is saying, we can connect you to them, and then you can have your conversations and your questions to them.
Yeah.
That'll
All
help.
right. Yeah.
That is great. Thank you so much.
So
I'll
if
get
there
in touch.
are, yeah, if there are no more questions, then I guess we'll end the session. Thank you, Babitha. Thank you, Chandan. Thank you, Puja, for sharing your journeys. I think makes me more positive about the work that I am doing also. Sometimes you need that as well. So you don't want to be reading the newspaper every day. Yeah, so and thank you everyone for joining us. Hopefully you found value in the session and the sharing. And we'll be doing this series monthly now. We'll do it once a month. So hopefully you will join us for our next episode as well. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Thank
You
you,
all take
everyone.
care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you, Adil and the rest of the team at Bhoomi.
Thank you. हाँ जी, ये लोग सब चले